wait for I see we are just 3 in a moment, is it right?
It's Rosa here, Joaquim, and is that it?
There's a few more people connected, but not fully. I don't know what that means.
What do you mean, not fully?
Because I see Patrick Quay joined the conversation, Karina Robin joined the conversation, but they don't appear in the list.
7 people in the call.
Yeah.
Let me check. Here we go.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Julia.
Hello. Hello again. Hello, Karina.
Hey, everyone.
Now, hi, Klaus. Hi, everybody.
Hi. Long time no see.
Yes, I had never time, unfortunately, but tonight I'm here.
Okay.
Very good.
Till we get ready, Joachim, don't forget to send me afterwards a few of these photos for our new online gallery. I want to put you in the Hall of Fame with everybody.
I'm not sure you still want that after you've seen the photos, but yeah, we can talk about that.
Yeah, Karina, the same for you, please.
Photos.
We will have a virtual online gallery.
Mm-hmm.
Since you presented, I think 5 years ago or something.
2 or 3. Yeah.
And
okay.
If you send me 2 or 3 of your photos in, say, 1,000 pixel is enough.
How much? I didn't hear. How much?
1,000.
1,000. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Then I put it in the gallery. Or
okay.
Actually, I will send out an email to you and to Joachim. And,
okay.
But just be warned that something.
Okay. All right. No problem.
Yeah, we have a lot of people today from everywhere, from Berlin, from Cannes, from Aachen, Brussels, of course. So it's a real international meetup. I like this. So while we wait a bit.
Okay.
You're still willing, then you can make a little introduction of Joachim later.
There's a lot of feedback from one microphone.
So whoever is not speaking, can we ask you to mute the mic, please? And that will reduce the background noise, unless it's you, Klaus.
Okay, thank you very much. So I think we also have a few new photos. Is someone who's here for the first time?
Perhaps we can go around very quickly and say everyone's name, where everyone is from, and then we'll introduce Joaquim very briefly, and then we can start. So I will start. I'm Rosa. I'm the co-organizer. Together with Klaus, I'm in Brussels, and welcome to the meetup. Klaus, would you like to go next? Janet?
Yes, hi.
Summer is raining very heavily here. I would like to ask Adil and Janet
Yes,
to mute your mics, please.
sure.
And Janet, if you're not speaking, thank you.
How do I mute it?
It's next
on
to the
Skype.
next to the hang up button at the bottom of the screen. But I think the noise was coming from Adil, so I think we're okay.
I don't see the mic.
That's no problem. It's okay. Don't worry. It's fine. So actually, let's go in alphabetical order. Can I ask Bang, where are you connecting from? And
Hi, can you hear me?
yes.
I'm from Aachen. And actually I was in the group for a long time, and today I just find there's event. So and we can hear from the traveler photograph. So I'm just like amateur, not too amateur, but I take the photograph more like a hobby, and I prefer taking photograph when I'm traveling, and then since last 5 months I was in Berlin, I tried a lot about portrait. I got some cooperation with the local actors, and since I'm now back in Aachen for my thesis, yeah, I would like to learn, just get to know more people who are interested in portrait and landscape, and especially we are interested in hiking also, and we can just like do together.
Thank you. So anyone else in Aachen who's interested, get in touch with Bang. And if you're ever in Brussels, let us know. Can I ask Eugene to give us a very, very brief introduction, where you are connecting from, perhaps?
Yeah, hey, I'm connecting from Brussels.
Thank you, Eugene. And then we have Hudson. I'm sorry if I mispronounce your names.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, and you're connecting from where?
I come from Aachen. I'm a student here. I just joined the video meeting spontaneously, and yeah, I just saw the advertisement, then I come here.
Fantastic. Welcome. Thank you for joining. And Janet.
Yes, hi there. I'm in Brussels. What should I say? Something about myself, my photography, or what?
Very briefly, perhaps.
Okay. Well, I've lived in Brussels for about 42 years, and I love reportage, kinds of news and that type of traveling and photography. But in the last 10 years, I've started scuba diving, and so I just do very amateurish photos underwater of this beautiful underwater life.
Beautiful. Thank you. And Joaquim will leave you for later. Now we have Karina.
Yes, I'm Karina. I live in Brussels, and I'm a wildlife and travel photographer.
Thank you. And then we have Patrick.
Yes, hi, hello. I'm Patrick. I'm connecting from Aachen, and I'm mainly into landscape photography.
Fantastic. So there's 3 of you in Aachen. I hope you know how to connect with each other afterwards, but if you don't, let us know. Silvina?
Hi. Well, I live in Brussels. And my favorite kind of photography is like nature landscapes.
Beautiful. You've come to the right place. Thank you for joining. Sylvia?
Hi. Yeah, I'm connecting from Ghent. Wait. Could you hear me before?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I thought it was still muted. Yeah, so from Ghent, and as a hobby, I like to do landscape and wildlife photography.
Fantastic. Thank you. And I think that has covered everybody. Klaus, do you want to say a very short word about Photoresk? And then I'll introduce Joaquim, and then I think we can get started.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, and thank you everybody for this short introduction. Yeah, for those who are new in the group and it's really hard to get an overview and to remember the faces or who is talking. Yeah, we are this network of photographers and photo enthusiasts. We're doing this since a few years now. So, and of course, welcome to everybody who is new. And one of the basic principles of this group, here is no someone like a master of the universe. I think we all have knowledge and we have experience in different fields. And the idea is that we, as we do tonight again, we just share our experience, what we've learned, maybe also some pitfalls or things to do better. So it's about learning from each other, and it's like life is a continuous learning process. So we have people also from two groups which are not. Aachen is relatively active, and we have a Berlin group. We don't have organizers in Berlin, and I really would encourage you just take the lead and set up a meetup, and now in summer and after this lockdown, just set up a meetup and go out with a group. You will see it's really easy. It's a lot of fun, and just do so. It would be really nice having someone taking on in Berlin and in Aachen too. I know Aachen is doing this also, and we also should look forward to have a joint meetup with Aachen and Brussels. I think now during summer we will for sure go to the East Belgium, Eifel, Fen region, and I think we could make a joint meetup. So that's from my side. Briefly, again, welcome. Enjoy the evening. I think it will be very interesting. We will see a lot of nice pictures and some experience from Rosa. You take over, please, and introduce Joaquim.
Thank you. Well, Joaquim, welcome. Thank you for accepting our invitation. Most of you know you, but for those who don't know Joaquim, Joaquim is very interesting as a photographer because he started off with analog and then suddenly on a trip decided to switch to digital and has been very faithful and loyal to digital photography ever since, if I understood correctly. And it is interesting that he decided to switch to digital whilst on holiday, and now he mainly takes landscape photographs whilst on holiday. So perhaps it was meant to be. It was a natural switch, and I will let Joaquim tell us a little bit more about it. And I understand you would like to share some photographs, and then you are welcome to ask questions once he has finished presenting, or if he wants to take questions throughout. Joaquim, you tell us, but I would just like to ask to keep your microphones muted if you're not speaking, please, and enjoy the presentation. Over to you, Joaquim.
Thank you very much, Rosa. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Good. Well, thank you very much for this opportunity to share some of my experience, which is not much. As Rosa said, I started with digital. That was the only thing available when I was taking photos at the beginning, and then I wasn't particularly enthusiastic with the switch to digital until I started seeing the possibilities, and then I've been fully converted. I do what I like to do is mostly landscape photography. In landscape, I sometimes include some urban landscapes, not just natural landscapes, but I try to do a lot of other things also. I like to try my hand at completely different things. So sometimes I do, I've done portrait, I've done street photography, but I'm not very good at any of that. It's not that I'm very good at landscape, but I think I'm a bit better. So I'd like to start showing you some photos, and I won't show you a big number of locations because I didn't see the point on that. But I'll try to share my screen. Let's see if this works.
Jagdar, can you please mute your microphones because we hear a lot of noise in the background? Thank you.
And related to that, I think Klaus suggested that we keep the questions to the end to avoid partly this issue with microphones that are switched on and off. He thinks that it works better if we do it after, but if you have anything pressing, just put a message in the chat and I'll let you speak. So I don't feel particularly strong about doing it one way or the other. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll start close to home, and this is just to show that we don't need to go very far to take some nice landscape photographies. This is in Parc Josaphat in Brussels. It was actually my first contact with Photoresk because Klaus organized something, and then we ended up being only the two of us. But it was a beautiful autumn day. It's quite difficult to take photos in Parc Josaphat because there's just too much, and it's difficult to individualize things to photograph. But I like this tree with the reddish color, and I thought it, even if there's a lot of other disturbing things, I thought it was sufficiently identifiable to take a photo. I generally, to give you a bit of technical information also, I generally take photos at ISO as low as possible. In landscape, there's usually no reason to go up with ISO. I tend to use 100 or even 50. 50 in the Canon 5D is an artifact. It's basically software. But I was a bit afraid that it would degrade the quality of the photos. I didn't find that, so sometimes I use 50, sometimes I use 100. This one, I didn't carry a tripod these days, so it was handheld, and the light on this tree was not that bright, so I had to raise the ISO a bit to 400. So still in Belgium and going a bit just slightly outside Brussels. This is next if you have been to the Coloma Rose Garden. It's a very nice place if you like photographing flowers, in particular roses, but because there are all kinds of different roses in the garden. But this is just outside, and I found this old half-dead tree a very interesting subject, mainly because of the variety of green shades that you can see in the photo. And again, I went there to take photos of flowers. So the lens I had was basically a macro 100 millimeters. So I had to zoom with my feet, basically. And the conditions in terms of light were also not brilliant. So I had to raise the ISO to 1600. But frankly, I don't see any effects. I'll show you some with even higher ISO, and I think that's it's quite good in the Canon 5D. Then so most of my photos are taken here in Brussels, near Brussels, or when I go on holiday. And it was only last year that I finally decided to join a trip specifically to go and photograph landscape. And I went with a group of Portuguese photographers to the Netherlands. And this is one of the photos that I got there. It's a small creek in Delden. And it's very difficult to render to make justice to the landscape, because it's just a beautiful place. with the curved trees reflecting on the water. The water was perfectly still, so I particularly like this type of photo with reflections. But again, no need to go very far. This is, a few hours drive from Brussels. And this is another wood in the Netherlands, in Halo. I spent quite a bit of time here photographing one way and the other. Basically, this is a long path in the woods, and there's you can see maybe that there's a railway line that passes at the end, but there was nothing that interesting on the other side. While on this side, I got a train, I got a couple with a baby on a stroller, and then at some point there was this guy on a bicycle that came, and this is one of the cases where I had to raise the ISO to 4000 because I needed a reasonably high speed to catch the cyclist in a correct way. But I love the colors. The woods in the Netherlands are beautiful in autumn. And I still have one more of woods in the Netherlands. This one is in Dree. And this is the kind of wood where I would, again, I was with this group, so we had maybe 2 or 2.5 hours in this wood. I would have stayed there the full day if I was on my own. So it's a place where I certainly plan to go back and spend a lot more time, because there's a lot of interesting things. And if you like macro, there were loads and loads of mushrooms. There's all kinds of moss on the tree trunks. It's a beautiful place. So well worth a visit and well worth photographing. And what I like on this photo is the pathway that does this S, and the trees that are basically very vertical, but with some variation. And then, as I said, I sometimes do urban or semi-urban landscape, and this is also in the Netherlands, not far from Amsterdam, a place called Marken on the IJsselmeer. And we went there basically at the sunset, but unfortunately the colors in the sky were all on the wrong side of the peninsula, because this is a short peninsula. But I found this lighthouse to be very, very nice. This is a very long exposure. It's, let me check, about 5 minutes exposure to get the water perfectly smooth. And basically the idea was to get the lighthouse with good definition.
You're getting some praise in the chat. Bravo, and also a request to specify where the photos were taken, please. The places, again, yeah. Perhaps for the woods, and maybe at the end we can list the places.
Yes. This one is a place called Delden in the Netherlands. These are all, apart from the first two, which were Belgium, the other ones are all Netherlands. This is Halo, but I can put in the chat afterwards the list of locations. The other one is Dree. And this one is Marken. Yeah, unfortunately, I cannot see the chat at the same time as I show the slides, so I'll have to look at that afterwards.
I'll monitor the chat. I'll let you know if there's any comments.
Then the next one is a very popular place, the Kinderdijk near Rotterdam. It's an amazing place. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. There's all these windmills. the canals. This was at about 4 in the morning. We went there to get the sunrise, but this was well before sunrise. And when we got there, I realized that there was all this yellow light in the sky, which basically comes from Rotterdam and from an industrial area between Rotterdam and Kinderdijk. But I thought it gave a bit of a strange, futuristic look to the sky and the reflection on the water. There was already light in this first windmill, so people were already awake and moving around. Some people apparently live there. And the next one is the same place a bit later. This was already after sunrise. And you see the sky was quite cloudy, so the sunrise itself was not great. But then afterwards, we got beautiful light. And again, it's a long exposure. And you see all the windmills perfectly aligned. It's a beautiful place. If you don't know it, I certainly advise you to go there. So this was my first trip of this kind, of going somewhere just to take photos, because most of the places I go is usually with family or friends. I don't know if you have tried that, but there's always going to be someone saying, okay, you've done enough, now let's go and do something else. Or you already taken that one, why are you taking it again? So this was certainly a different experience, and I'll show you some photos later of another one that I've done of the same kind. But the holidays sometimes also give good occasions, and this is a nice place. This is actually one of the beaches where I used to go regularly when I was a kid, because it was about 15 kilometers from where I lived. So it's in Portugal, near Sintra, so near Lisbon also. And there's a restaurant just where you're sitting, basically. So we were having dinner there, and this was very nice because I could leave everyone else finishing their dinner calmly, and I went to the beach to take some photos of the sunset. And there's these nice straw parasols which give a nice effect. So I like this photo more for the beach was completely empty at this time, even if 5 minutes before I got a picture of someone running on the beach. So, and this is an example of things not working as you planned them. I was in Lisbon. My brother is also very much into photography. He's actually, I think, a better photographer than I am. But one evening we said, let's go and photograph the sunrise at Morisca, which is about 60 kilometers away, tomorrow. So he came and picked me up from the hotel at about stupid o'clock in the morning, I think it was, maybe 3:30 or something. And we went to this place, and this was the sunrise we got. So it was completely cloudy, foggy, but I actually liked the effect of this blue sky reflected on the water. This is an old tidal mill that has been recovered, and there's a few things for boats, and so it's a very nice area in the estuary of the Sado River, so just south of Lisbon. And another example is this one. This was supposed to be a sunset. This is the Vasco da Gama Bridge in Lisbon. If you've been to Lisbon, it's you see it already from the plane when you're landing or taking off. It was for some time the longest suspension bridge in Europe before the bridge between Denmark and Sweden was built. And it basically connects Lisbon to the south bank of the Tagus River. And it's a very nice architectural work, but I've seen beautiful sunrises taken at more or less the same place. But when I went there, this was all there was. So sometimes it happens that you plan things very well, and then the weather that just doesn't help you very much. But sometimes it does. And this was a sunset in a place called Tomar, which is about 100 kilometers, a bit less, north of Lisbon. And there's this old aqueduct. It was a bit of an adventure because I had a problem, a medical problem with the leg, and had some difficulty walking. And to get to the point where you can get this photo, you need to go up very steep stairs without handrails or anything. So it took a bit of balance and crawling sometimes to get to the place and set the tripod. But the sunset was just amazing. So I liked the place. I had never been there before. I had seen some photos and then went to look for it. And now I come to a much better known place. And this was another trip that I took with the same group, basically. That I went to the Netherlands, and last June I went to the Dolomites, and that was quite an experience. Again, this was shortly after my problem with the leg, so I had some difficulty moving, but I did things that I never imagined I could have done, and went to places which are just amazing. The problem is, with the Dolomites and these popular places, they are crowded. And you don't see it here, but to the right and to the left, I think we were 6 or 7 Portuguese photographers, and then there were about 50 Chinese photographers with all kinds of cameras, even the very old models with I don't know what to call the extendable things. So it was just an amazing experience. But basically, everyone was there photographing the same thing. So I think it's a very nice place, but there must be about a million photos like this one circulating on the internet. So it has some advantages, but it's not really, you can't get anything new. This is also in the Dolomites. It's the San Valentino Church in Castelroto. And here it was, the challenge was a bit trying to get the church and the mountains in a nice perspective. The grass was mown on the lower side, but not on the higher side. This needed also some photoshopping. I generally process my photos in Lightroom, and I don't do that much in general. I'll show you some at the end where I've done a lot more than I do usually, but here the basic processing was done also in Lightroom. But I had to use Photoshop to remove a construction crane down in the valley and a water pipe just in front of the church. So I never had anything. I don't particularly like the idea of replacing skies and things like that, but eliminating disturbing elements in the photo I sometimes do. I think I know some people like to get everything perfect on camera. I'm not particularly obsessed with that. And this is one of the many beautiful lakes in the Dolomites. It's Lake Bra. This is a funny story about it, because you see the small house with the boats. This is a house where they rent boats, but it's open from something like 9 to 5 or 9 to 6. And we were there at about 4:30 in the morning, so it was closed. And when it's closed, there's a big sign saying you cannot get in, and there's a fence, so you cannot get on the bridge to get to a nice what would have been a very nice photo with the boats and the mountains in the back. But some people actually got in the water up to chest level. 4:30 in the morning in the Alps, the water wasn't particularly warm. But they did it, and they actually got the photo right in front of that small pontoon with the boats. So I wasn't that courageous there. But the lake is an amazing place. It's easily accessible, which means that also if you go during the daytime, it's very crowded. But I went there in the evening and very early in the morning before sunrise, and it was, there were a few other photographers, but nothing that is unmanageable. And this is another funny story. This is very close to Cortina d'Ampezzo. We were staying there for the evening, for the night. The nights were always very short in this trip, because you can imagine in June, sunset is quite late and sunrise is very, very early. So the typical day was having dinner around 11 at night, going to bed for a couple of hours, getting up at 3:30 to short drive to a place to take photos around sunrise. And this one was also around 4:30 in the morning. It's a place called Lake Antorno. And when we got there, it was beautiful, very calm, beautiful reflections on the lake, but it was still night. It was quite dark. And we were hoping to get some sun rays on the mountains, but sunrise or a bit after that. But in the meantime, there was a breeze that came, and basically the reflections totally disappeared. And we ended up moving to a different place, and I'll show you next a photo from there. But even so, I like this type of, I've shown you already two others where there was no sun, but you can still get very nice photos, I think. And we went down to Lake Misurina, which was just less than 5 kilometers from the other one, thinking, well, it's a bigger lake, it's a bit down, a bit lower in altitude, so it's going to be very windy there also. And we got there and it was like this, perfectly calm, perfect reflections, and it was a beautiful place. And this was already just after sunrise, so here there's already a bit of light. This is a long exposure. I think it's something like 1 minute. So you get some movement in the clouds, and you get the water perfectly still. And then we stayed here for a long time. And the sun and the conditions and the clouds changed completely every second, basically. And a few minutes later, I decided to change from the wide angle and put on my long zoom, even if at the shortest focal distance. I use a 70 to 300 millimeter zoom. And at 70 millimeters, I got this, which was, I feel the light on the clouds and on the mountains was just amazing. And as I said, it was changing all the time. So this is one of the photos that I like because of the light. I think it's an amazing place to photograph. And now I'm going to show you a bit different. This was in the north of Portugal. This is the area where my parents come from. And we went out for a coffee in the morning, and then I decided to just walk on the beach and take some photos. And I decided to do this long exposure of these rocks and do it in black and white because the sun was the light was too harsh. So I preferred it in black and white. But it gives these. It's not perfect. I think I'll go back and try different exposures, different shutter speeds, because I think you can get a better effect here. But I still, I thought it was interesting to show you because sometimes you get very, very different things if you try different approaches. And the next one is also a black and white, but with some split toning. It's the Dolomites. Again, the the light wasn't very interesting here. It was the dark clouds were interesting, but the light was quite uniform. And there was this rail that I found quite interesting, leading to the peak in front. So I decided to treat these in black and white. I'm doing some experiments. This was processed recently because I'm basically revisiting, and I took the lockdown period to revisit some of these older photos and process them in a different way. Actually, these had been taken in landscape format, and I cropped it to be portrait. I think it's stronger like this, basically focusing on this rail and the mountain, and leaving outside things which didn't seem that interesting to me. And the last one is actually Clan Day for for Rosa, because she had mentioned at the end of the last meeting that she does bird photography, but she doesn't feel very comfortable about showing it.
Thank you. I'm laughing quietly here.
This was Intervuren, and this is another one that I don't think was particularly successful, but I want to go back and redo these, because there are all these skis coming and landing on the water.
It's the shutter speed here, Joaquim.
Basically, this was panning with following the birds. The shutter speed was 1/15 of a second, and this something where I should probably have done it, and also have better panning so that I could have at least a couple of heads perfectly sharp. And here there's none that is perfectly sharp. But I really like the feeling of movement, because basically you see in the background and the foreground, it's I was moving with the camera to follow the birds, so I found it a quite interesting idea, but something that I need to go back and practice, as they say.
Absolutely fantastic. Thank you for sharing it.
So no, this is what I thought I could show. As you see, no, there's no great photos. I do this in my free time, so I would need a lot more practice. But I'm trying, and I will continue to practice as long as I can. And I always like to learn new things, so I've used the lockdown period also to follow a lot of other photographers in YouTube, in Facebook. I'm not a big fan of Instagram. I don't know. It might be because I never got really used to it, but I have more difficulty in following things there. But I'm certainly always learning. And then there are things that I would love to do. I had a trip planned in April to Slovenia and Croatia, to some natural parks there, which obviously was cancelled. I'm still planning to go maybe in August or September. And then I'm planning to go to Iceland in October, because you need to go to Iceland if you do landscape photography, more than any other reason. But again, I think it's going to be a bit like the Dolomites. It's beautiful landscapes, but I doubt that I'll be able to find anything that hasn't been photographed to exhaustion already. So, okay, I'll stop here. And if there are questions, I'll try to answer them.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you for sharing all this, and it's an enormous variety of subjects you have, and I think you also have a very specific technique in finding lead-ins into the photo, like this handrail on one of those, or the and one of the first I really like these from the Netherlands, where there, apropos rail, where is the railway at the end of this forest path track. it looks like a stage to me. It's a very special place. Thank you.
See it again?
Yeah.
Possible to see it again, please?
Yes, that photo actually has a story. I'll share it again. I actually have it printed on paper because one of the Facebook groups where I sometimes post some photos, I posted this one, and there's a photo store in Portugal that at the end of last year decided to choose, I don't know how many photos to print and offer to the authors. And I was very surprised that they selected this one, and they sent me a print. So I have a big print that I need to frame and put on my wall somewhere. But yes, it's not staged at all. As I said, I got the train passing in one other photo, or a couple of other photos because the train was quite long. I've got a couple with a baby on a stroller crossing this path. And then I got this the cyclist, which I think is by far the one that fits better in the frame. So I also like very much this photo because of the colors. I love autumn colors.
Yeah, indeed, it's very nice, and I think it took you a lot of effort to put all the leaves in a way that looks as if it's nobody walked ever there. It's so.
Yeah, it's it was quite wet, and that helps because the leaves would just stay there. There was no even there was no wind, but even if there was wind, the leaves were just on the ground. They were too heavy because of the water, and they wouldn't move. If you look very close, I didn't get perfect focus in the foreground because I also didn't want to. There were some footprints around, but it's reasonably wide that you don't see them.
Okay. Yeah, it's a great picture, and it's I think we will talk about more of your pictures. But since I have the microphone in the moment, one remark to the Dolomites. If you want to go to the Dolomites and to be alone, go in November. I was 2 or 3 years ago. I went in end of October, beginning of November to the Dolomites, and everything was closed there. There was nobody at even the hotspots. I slept in my truck, and after I think 3 or 4 days, I even decided to go to a hotel for one night. It wasn't possible because I didn't find an open hotel. So this is just a season between seasons, and then you will be alone, and sunrise and sunset are at really reasonable times.
Yes, that's a big advantage.
One thing, and just a little other thing, for your Iceland trip, I spent last year 3 months in Iceland. If you have any questions, just ask me. I can. I drove 12,000 kilometers forth and back on this island. I think I know a lot of spots, but I didn't. Sometimes I intentionally avoided the real hotspots because I didn't want the 3 millionth photo of Gullfoss or something. But I can give you some hints about Iceland. So,
okay, I'm going with my brother if we go, who's also been there already. So, but yes, thanks. I might have some questions.
Okay, now I give the phone to someone else.
I think Adil had a lot of questions in the chat. Perhaps you'd like to say something, Adil? Or someone else?
Hello, I'm Adil here. I'm a student here in Germany, specifically talking Geilenkirchen, North Rhine-Westphalia.
Yes.
So actually, I would like to know the places, especially this place where you took this photo from, and also the others, if it's possible.
Yeah, this one is called the Halo, Heiloo. But yes, I suggest that I'll list the places afterwards in the chat, and you
Yeah,
can
that
check
would
all
be
the.
nice of you, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Does anyone else have questions?
Hi, I have a question.
Please.
Do you always go out to find something more like hiking, or you prefer to check? For example, you would like to take a photo. You prefer randomly finding something new, or you would check some photos from other with the YouTubers or the photographers and then go there?
I'd say both. Looking at what is in YouTube, or sometimes just look at Google Earth or Flickr. It's quite nice, gives you an idea of what is available. The problem with that is, again, what Klaus also mentioned, that you end up taking the 3 millionth photo of the same thing. So I tend to go to some of these places that I find, in these organized trips. Basically, there was one guy in the group that did all the scouting. He had been in all these places before. He thought that they were interesting, and he took us there. But I was quickly known in the group as the one who didn't follow the rules. So I would just stray away and then go and walk around and find other places to photograph. Because I like to find different angles or different places, not take always the same photo. So it's a bit of balance between not wasting your time when you're, as I said, I have a full-time job in an office. I don't have that much time to photograph. So when I go, I like to go to a place where I know there's some potential for good photos. So it's a balance between that and taking always the same photos from the same angles as everyone else does. So I do a bit of both.
Yeah, Sylvia here. Hi. I was also going to comment on the fact that when you go on a trip and there's on a photography trip, or I've gone with 2 friends in the Alps, and we were going to the places where we knew that we could have a nice photo because it had been done before. But then we were always trying to have it in a different angle. So if it was a lake in the mountain, what has been done before, and then you just go around the lake, maybe, checking other angles, another location, and other reflections also. And yeah, because we were doing mainly sunsets and sunrises. So I agree that sometimes it's not that easy, but you have to play with your creativity,
Yeah. But one example is this one from Misurina. There's millions of photos from this angle because it's basically the only wide angle that you can take there. So there's not much choice. But I haven't seen many like these.
No, this one is really nice.
Cropped much tighter. So yes, it's you can always do one more like this, but then I like to try different things.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. No, I really liked all the pictures, so really nice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Eugene here. I think what Sylvia is talking about is called unusual point of view.
Yeah.
In photography, and I try to do the same thing all the time.
Yeah. No, I think it's you need it if you want to keep a bit of creativity. You need to do that. You need to look for different angles, different position, different light. Usually everyone talks about taking photos during the golden hour or the blue hour, but sometimes you can get nice photos even during the day. And I like the one. This one. The light wasn't particularly. The sun was very high still. It was in the evening, but around 6:30 or something in the evening when the sunset was at 9:30. So it's different light. Sometimes black and white works very well in these conditions if you have strong lights with strong shadows, and so you have to explore different possibilities. I fully agree.
I have a question on the windmill pictures, please. And specifically the next one. Nope, the blue one. The next one.
Yeah.
No. Sorry, there was one more. It was not a windmill, it was a lighthouse.
Yeah.
I'd like to know a little bit more about the technicalities of this photo, please.
Yes, let me find them. So it was taken with the 24 to 70 millimeter zoom at 70 millimeters because there's a small kind of a bay here, and I was on the other side. F11 and 5 minutes exposure, and ISO 50 in this case.
So 5 minutes exposure. Was this the morning picture? Or?
It was in the evening. This was after sunset.
Okay. Beautiful. I find it very soothing to look at. It's a really, really well done.
Thank you. Then I got what I wanted, because that's exactly the effect that I wanted to get.
Yes, it looks like a painting. It doesn't look. The water looks painted. It's really very nicely done. I also like how, I suppose you've done a little bit of post-processing, but I really quite like how the light isn't overdone onto the water. It's very gentle. It's very delicate. And actually, sorry, I should have seen it was an evening picture because of the lights at the horizon. But it's beautiful. It's one of those pictures you could look out for hours. You could stare at this picture for hours.
Yeah, if I remember well, I didn't do that much processing on this one, except bringing up a bit the lights in the house, not the one in the top of the lighthouse, but the windows. I wanted to give a bit more prominence to those. So I think I did some work there. But for the rest, I think it's mostly the basic adjustments in Lightroom without any additional things or any very complicated treatment.
I was going to ask you, I noticed that the light indeed looks quite sharp for a long exposure picture.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is still a long exposure. It's I didn't modify it. I didn't use two different photos to combine them, or basically there was no movement inside the house that, well, if there was anyone passing, it wouldn't last very long. So it doesn't even appear in a 5-minute exposure. And the light was rotating. Stable. So, pardon?
I thought that the light would be rotating.
On top of no, basically I got, with 5 minutes, you got the whole circle.
Yeah, okay.
Beautiful.
So
really nice.
Yeah, the reflection on the water basically just shows them the thing towards the camera, but there was some reflection all over.
How do you do a 5 minutes exposure?
How do I do it in terms of what I use bulb mode in the camera, so on a good sturdy tripod, quite heavy. So walking the Dolomites with that tripod is not exactly the most nice experience, but so it's basically setting it on a tripod, putting it in bulb mode, and then manually controlling. I do at this time I didn't have. Now I have a remote control where you can actually set it. Actually, in the camera also you can set it, but it's a bit cumbersome because you have to go in the menus and set the time for your bulb exposures. So I did it manually. This is actually not exactly 5 minutes. It's 5 minutes and 5 seconds.
Okay, I've never used the bulk mode, but I will look for it. And I
use the filter. I used, I think, a 10-stop filter because the light was too much to allow me for such a long exposure.
Yeah, I understand, because 5 minutes seemed like a lot, but
it is a lot. No, it was quite dark already, but there was still too much light to be able to do it without a filter.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't catch where this was.
This is not far from Amsterdam, in the IJsselmeer. It's a small fishing village called Marken, and then this is about. No, it's on a. I think it was an island originally. Now there's a bridge connecting to the main road, and then you have to leave the car in the village in Marken and walk for maybe 5 kilometers to get to the end of this island where there's this lighthouse. So what you see is actually a lake, because it's the part of the sea that was closed by the dike in the north of the Netherlands.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions? Welcome, welcome, Petros.
Hi, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. You've timed it at the what I think is the most beautiful picture, but Joaquim has just shown us a lot of very, very beautiful pictures.
I see.
Hudson, you also had some questions in the chat earlier.
I'm just trying to.
Yes, just very interesting this landscape, which Capitao already described. Yeah, this night view is very, very beautiful.
Thank you.
And I was wondering if there are any hanging out together to take some street view or landscape events in the future.
Possibly, but maybe we'll get to that at the end, if that's okay. We can have a chat about what's coming up or what's not. But maybe
at the end of this month or when?
End of this month. So we haven't started talking about meetings again, but we try to do these talks every couple of weeks. So there'll be another one in 2 weeks' time. And then for the Brussels-based people, we might start thinking about some physical meetups, but we haven't really discussed it yet. And with regards to Aachen, you are most welcome to get in touch if you'd like to organize something. We can give you some tips. There's 3 of you that have said they want to do something together. So if you want to get in touch after this call, we can see what's possible and give you some tips on how to do that.
That's cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
But perhaps now we can see if anyone else has any more questions on the photographs. Joaquim, could I just ask you to go through them again, just to show us, like just run through them on the screen maybe in full screen, so we can have a look at them again. And
yeah. Do you want me to say where they are? Or...
Yeah, that's a good idea. Maybe we can say where they are. And
Okay, this is Park Josaphat in Brussels. This is, I think it's called St. Peter's Leeuw. It's next to the Coloma Rose Garden, so just outside Brussels. This is in the Netherlands, a place called Delden.
Which Rose Garden?
This one is at the Coloma Rose Garden. It's a very nice rose garden. If you like photographing roses, it's a beautiful place. There's basically, I think it's open from March or April until October.
Could you
always
proceeding on this one?
Maybe I'll just write in the Coloma Rose Garden. If you search on the internet, you'll find it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So this one is Delden in the Netherlands. This is a quite difficult place to photograph also because it's taken from a bridge on a narrow road with cars passing all the time. So with your tripod and everything, you need to be careful. This one is Halo, also in the Netherlands. Try to group them by countries, basically. This one is Drie. Marken in the Netherlands. Then two from Kinderdijk. This one, that one. Then this is Portugal. It's a place called Praia Grande near Sintra, near Lisbon. This is a place called Morisca near Setúbal. So it's on the southwest estuary, just south of Lisbon, about 50 kilometers south of Lisbon. This is Lisbon, the Vasco da Gama bridge. This is a place called Tomar in Portugal.
You hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Excuse me. I was wondering if you could tell me the three previous one in the Netherlands.
Joaquim, is it possible to write them in the chat? Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, this one. Where is it? If you could write it in the chat, and the other even after this one. I think it's the same place, isn't it?
Yeah, these two are the same place. Kinderdijk. The problem is I can see the chat
please.
And well, I'll try. I'm not sure my Dutch spelling is fully correct, but it's very close to Rotterdam, and it's a World Heritage Site. So if you look for World Heritage Sites in the Netherlands, you'll find it. The previous one, the lighthouse, is Marken. Let me see.
Was this taken wide angle? Sorry, this picture that is up here now with the sunrise. Is it a wide angle?
Yes, it's 31 millimeters. Not particularly wide, but yes, it's quite.
Was this
I don't
picture
have any
cropped later?
I don't have any ultra wide, and then it was basically cropped top and bottom to have this panoramic view. But it's one photo, 31 millimeters. Okay, so these ones we've seen. Vasco da Gama Bridge. This is Tomar, also in Portugal. And then the Dolomites. This is Alpe di Siusi.
This viaduct in Portugal. So you have to climb up there?
This one, yes. Basically, there's a place here for the maintenance, and there's a very steep stairs going up to this small. It's not even a house. It's basically a covered place where they keep they used to keep the instruments. Now it's not used, but I guess that's where they used to keep their things for working, cleaning it up, and that kind of thing. And then you can actually walk on it, but I didn't do that.
Yeah, I was amazed that you have in Portugal. There are still these Roman viaducts.
Yeah.
Portuguese Roman.
There's a few. I think this one is not Roman. This is more recent. It's from the 1500s, I think, because it was done at the same time as the convent in Tomar, and this was basically supplying water to the convent, which is also a very nice place to visit. And it is particular because there's one window which is UNESCO World Heritage. It's just that window of the convent, and this was basically the water supply system for that convent when it was built by the Templar Knights.
Okay, yeah, and it's still operated, huh? It's still in use.
No, now it isn't.
But some of them are. Huh?
Some of them, I don't. One of them was in Lisbon, was still used quite 20 or 30 years ago, but now it's not used anymore. It's a museum basically. Okay. And then there's another one in Elvas next to the Spanish border, which is very nice also. And then there's smaller ones. But yes, there's quite a few things from which of these kind that are quite nice.
Excuse me, one more time. What does it call, this place? Where is it exactly?
Yes, So Tomar is the small town. This is about 5 kilometers from the town.
Cool. Thank you.
And then the next one was Alpe di Siusi. In Italy, this is a plateau and the Dolomites quite high. And you see that even in June, there's a lot of snow. And there's these small huts all over the place, so it's quite nice. This is a place called it's the San Valentino Church in Castelroto. These places always have an Italian and a German name, so I remember the Italian name. I don't remember the German name.
But with this, to be honest, you have with the church, you have an interesting composition, I think. Right? So I would have either gone a bit further on the other side of I think I have also a photo of this church, but from the other side of the valley. So the church in full, not.
Yeah.
I know.
So yeah. I could also have walked in this high grass and gone a bit up to get the church a bit more in full. But if I do that, then I get the church in front of the mountain. This way, I could get the church in the middle. So that's what I looked for. But yes, I think there's a lot of different compositions that you could get for this place.
Yep.
And each one with advantages and disadvantages.
Okay, thank you.
So this one is Lake Braias. No, these are all very popular places in the Dolomites. This one is quite nice. There's a hotel right next to it. I didn't stay there, but you can actually stay there and go in your pajamas for the sunrise and avoid having to get up so early. This is Lake Antorno.
Sorry, from the picture before.
Yeah.
So this one, is it like in a very deep valley? Because I can't really. So it's really well taken because you can't really see where you are. So I've never been to the Dolomites, so I really want to go there. So where would the sun come up from? Would you see it in front of you, or would
no, you don't. It's too. I know it's basically sunrise because it's a nice light and everything is very quiet. But it's not that you can catch a sunrise there because it's too deep in the mountains.
Okay.
When you see the sun, it's already very, very high and very bright. You can see here at the bottom of the photo, you can see the reflection. At the top, I actually cut it on purpose to give less of an impression of the size of the place. But the mountains around on all sides are huge.
Okay. So even if the sun is up, it doesn't reflect or give any colors to. Well, I guess the colors on the lake do change a bit depending on the hour of the day, or not even then.
It gets more. It gets more blue because at this time there's not much light, so it's basically all green because of the reflection of the trees. When there's a bit more light, then you get more the color of the water, and it's a bit bluer.
Yeah, wow, amazing. Yeah, it's really nice.
It is a beautiful place, and it's not a very big lake. You can walk around it, and from every place you can find excellent angles for photos.
And if you walk around it, then is there like these little houses, or is this the only constructions that there is on the lake, or is there more?
These are the only constructions. There's one place, if you go to the left of this photo, you go up, the path goes up a bit, and from there are places where you can actually see the hotel, which is in the valley to the right of those houses. But they basically a small house that was being reconstructed at that time. It's the boathouse and the small chapel, and that's it.
I was mainly interested in seeing if there could be pictures taken without any houses or anything.
I have several without any constructions.
Yeah. Thanks.
So this is Lake Antorno in the morning, Lake Misurina. And I found out that yellowish house in the middle that I thought was a big, expensive hotel is actually a sanatorium for respiratory diseases. It's not a bad place to go if you want to recover from illness, which is the one you see here. Here it's practically impossible to take photos without houses because, well, there's this one which is quite prominent, but then on the right side there's a small village, and there are houses everywhere. And this one is a place called Esposende in the north of Portugal, which used to be a very nice sandy beach, and now it's completely eroded and it's rocky all over. This is in Passo Rolle, also in the Dolomites. And the last one is Tervuren, very close to Brussels.
Thank you. I feel like I should say something about this photograph because you included it for me. Well, first of all, thank you for being so thoughtful and including it. Perhaps before I say a few words, I wanted to share a comment from Janet, who says, I rarely take landscape pictures, but Joaquim's are really inspiring, and his knowledge of technical aspects is impressive. I enjoyed seeing them, and I think Janet echoed all of our feelings, and I think it is very impressive and inspiring.
Thank you very much.
And with regards to this picture, it's unusual. It's the first time I think I see panning done with birds, so it's really very, very interesting as an approach. I mean, birds move so much already that at least personally, I'm trying to get them when they're as still as possible. So it's actually quite interesting to see that you chose to do the exact opposite. But I like the movement, and I like the way that the colors change, and it looks like they're on sand. It looks like they're in the middle of the desert, somewhere landing in an oasis. So it's quite enjoyable and very unusual. So thank you.
Yeah, this was a very particular morning. Basically, I was out on a Saturday with a few other photographers doing street photography downtown Brussels, and then we went for a beer. And someone said, oh, you know, it's supposed to be nice tomorrow morning. Why don't we go to Tervuren for sunrise? So we met there. This was in something like October or November. So we went there just before sunrise. We had to run to a place to actually get there for sunrise. And the idea was to get beautiful colors. It wasn't particularly great, and we got there. When we got to a nice place, it was too late and the sun was too bright. But I made a few. Well, this was the final experiment when going back to the car, and I did about 20 of these, and this is the only one that is even presentable, even if it's not good. The other ones were complete rubbish. But I like the idea, and I will go back and try it again, because I think it's an interesting idea. And the main effect is, as you said, that the background and the foreground basically disappear. It's streaks of light. It was also curious because the grass on this side of the lake was much drier than on the other side, so it's yellow in the front and green in the back.
Actually, I think that's what makes this picture, the way that they seem to be the birds. You can't quite tell where exactly they are. You see there's some water, but then the difference in color, it's actually quite beautiful composition. Yeah.
Yeah, I have another one that I can send to you.
Please, yeah.
That was also the same day, which was a complete mistake. I was taking photos of the lake with there was a bit of fog on the lake or mist, so I was trying to get that, and all of a sudden I see two swans on the other side with their wings open, and I started shooting, and then I realized that my settings were completely wrong. And then when I got home and got them on the computer, I found that the ones of the swans were actually quite nice, because everything was completely black except for the swan, which was very bright white, and with a bit of processing and bringing the white out, it was quite a nice photo.
I would love to see them, please, if I may. It sounds quite interesting. And the settings, the wrong settings on birds is a typical...
yes, everything goes too fast.
Absolutely, it's a very big issue. You're missing half of them because they move and everything changes. So it's I relate to the wrong settings, shooting in the wrong settings and realizing afterwards. But thanks again for including this.
You're welcome.
Sorry, I just get a little lost. I have a question about this picture. So when you take this picture, you just say that you take a lot of pictures. So you always keep the focus on the bird, and it seems that you move your hands a little. In the vertical way, like you move the camera to left or the right to make the both sides looks blurry, but you still keep focus. But you still keep focus on the birds, right?
Yeah, well, for this, I was shooting handheld because it's very difficult. Well, you need a tripod with a specific head for this kind of thing so that you can pan. But so it was handheld, so there might be a bit of movement in all directions. But basically, I was following the birds from the right to the left in the photo, trying to follow, and I was using autofocus, so focusing on the bird that is more isolated in the middle. The focus is far from being perfect, but that's what I tried to do basically. And I have many photos because there were several groups of these geese landing and taking off all the time. So I repeated the experience several times.
Okay.
And then I think I had the camera in continuous mode. So even for this particular group, I probably have about 5 or 6 photos. But then I have another 5 or 6 of the next group that came.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Klaus?
Yeah, awesome. We could make a meetup when this and start with a snail or something.
So cheeky.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I see that people are gently trickling out. So I would like to ask perhaps for one last round of questions. Anyone?
Before everybody leaves, at the beginning, someone was talking about portrait sessions. I don't know, actually, I don't remember who it was. Is he still in
Portraits?
portraits?
Yeah, I'm saying about portraits. Just like I have interest about portraits. Yeah.
Was it you?
So no, I'm just a participant, and I say that I made some portraits in my last 5 months.
Yeah. Can you speak a bit up? Maybe it's my loudspeaker, but I really can't. I can't hear you very well. We also will look for someone presenting the next event in 2 weeks. It would be a nice mix if we would you like to speak about portraits?
Wait, but I'm not sure whether I am able to make this, but maybe we can just talk in private.
Okay, yeah. Let's get in touch about this, and just before you leave, and we can, yeah, maybe send me an email or send me a contact. Um, I just don't see who's speaking in the moment. Just send me a message, and then we get privately in touch, please.
Okay. Because I'm not talking on the phone, so I don't know how to send you a private message now.
Send me an. I